Apparently, quite a few of you have been asking me to make this video, so here we go. Let's take a deep dive into the combat systems of Wuthering Waves, and based on that we will then learn how to build teams. This will be quite a long and in-depth video, so get yourself some tea or coffee and let's get started. First up, let's talk about the very basics. Each Resonator can have exactly one weapon equipped. This weapon usually features some special effect which ranges from a simple attack increased by 4% to a slightly more complicated one, such as increases attack by 10% for 4 seconds after casting your resonance skill. This can stack up to 2 times. So why do I even talk about weapons? Well, depending on your weapon's effect and stats, that might change how you actually play a character. But we will get back to this later. I will not dive too deep into echoes as I already have like 3 videos on that which you can watch if you're interested. However, it is worth mentioning that many of the echo abilities can be swap cancelled, which in turn will vastly increase your DPS, as some of the echo abilities are actually quite long. Looking at you, monkey. To add to this, some Resonators also have specific skill animation cancels, but that's an entirely different video. So speaking of which, let's cover the Resonators. They are what defines most of the gameplay after all. Each Resonator has 8 skills, well, technically 7. One of them is usually something like can produce special dishes when cooking. So let's say 7. 2 of them are inherent skills, which are passive bonus abilities. An example for this would be Yinlin's Pain Immersion, which increases her crit rate for 5 seconds after casting her resonance skill. Speaking of which, said resonance skill is a special ability with a unique effect and a medium cooldown. Usually at least, some Resonators have really short cooldowns on their skill. They also all have one basic attack, which defines the damage dealt by, well, your basic attacks, as well as your heavy attacks, or in Genshin terms charge attack, your dodge counter, which is basically a basic attack which you can do directly after a perfect dodge, and your mid-air attack, which is literally just a plunge. Next up is the ultimate, or also called Resonance Liberation in this game. This is, well, the ultimate ability, which usually inherits quite a long cooldown and requires the character to have their Resonance Liberation energy fully charged. This is the first of 3 resources. I will get back to all of them after we have them covered. Then there's also the Forte Circuit. The Forte Circuit is a gameplay defining ability which is really hard to categorize since it totally changes depending on the character. To go back to Yinlin as an example, her Forte basically allows her to deal damage while being off-field after a certain condition has been fulfilled. However, nearly all Resonators have one thing in common. The Forte Circuit requires to be charged and can only be used when the Forte Circuit energy, also called Forte Gauge, is fully filled. This is the second resource, again, back to that in a bit. The last abilities each Resonator has are their intro and outro skills. These are usually a special entrance ability, dealing damage, restoring health, or similar in the case of intro skills, and in the case of outro skills, they usually buff up the next character or the entire team or deal damage. Again, usually, exceptions exist. The outro and intro skill can be used when the Concerto energy of the current on-field character is full. Outro and intro skills are automatically activated when you switch a character when their Concerto energy is full. You will also have this possibility indicated by a special sound effect. When switching out your current character, the outro skill of said character will be triggered, as well as the intro skill of the incoming Resonator, and, well, the Concerto energy will be consumed. Now that we have covered all 3 types of resources, let's talk about them. The Resonance Liberation energy, or ultimate energy, is acquired by all means and can be acquired while being off-field, because 30% of all ultimate energy generated will be shared to your teammates. However, this shared energy is not influenced by the energy regen of your current Resonator, but by the energy regen of the receiving character. As an example, let's look at Rover. Rover's full basic attack sequence will generate 11.4 Resonance Liberation energy for themselves and shares 3.42 energy to other Resonators. However, this is only if your current energy regen is exactly 100%. If you would increase this value to, let's say, 200%, Rover will now gain 22.8 energy, but still only shares 3.42 energy to your team. This also means that Energy Regen is more important for units which are most of the time not on the field and are very reliant on their ultimate. Forte Circuit energy, or the Forte gauge, is also acquired by basically all means, but you are required to stay on the field. To cast Rover's Forte Circuit you need 50 energy, and you can hold 100, which basically means up to 2 stacks. Hence, if your character is also very dependent on the Forte Circuit, and to be honest most Resonators are, you will need some significant field time with them and adjust your rotations accordingly. Last but not least, we have the Concerto energy, which also requires your Resonator to be on the field to generate. Concerto caps out at 100, which means you need 100 Concerto energy to activate the outro skill of your current and the intro skill of the incoming character. In Rover's example, that would be 12 Concerto for the full basic attack sequence. Given they need 1 to 2 seconds for the full sequence, they would need 10 seconds spamming only their basic attack to get to full Concerto. That was a lot. And that all being said, let's cover the game's combat mechanics. First up, you will sometimes see enemies flashing golden, just like here. Pressing your basic attack just at the right time will not only inflict a significant amount of toughness damage to the enemy, 12.5% to be exact, but also completely cancels the attack. Toughness is, by the way, this little white bar below the enemy health, and depleting it will stun said enemy for a few seconds. This means 8 parries will fully deplete the toughness bar. However, when actually playing the game, all other actions such as basic attacks or skills will also damage it, which means in a real fight this amount will be substantially lower. One last mention, while stunned, enemies will not take more damage, and toughness damage inflicted by your Resonator's abilities will depend highly on the damage dealt by your attack. So what do you do if you cannot parry an attack? Well, either you get hit, or better, you dodge. Dodging at the perfect time will grant you a perfect dodge, which in turn will make your next, directly the dodge following basic attack, a dodge counter. Dodge counters are very powerful and deal a lot more damage, toughness damage, and generate a lot more resonance liberation and concerto energy than your usual basic attack. Looking again at Rover, the dodge counter itself generates 5.24 resonance liberation energy and 16.67 concerto energy. Again, Rover here is just an example. Energies generated will be different for each Resonator and their respective skills and abilities. Last but not least, let's just very briefly touch on multiplayer. When playing multiplayer, it behaves very similar to Genshin. However, you basically get to only control one Resonator at a time, and activating your intro or outro skills will instead buff the Resonators of your friends or strangers you are playing with instead. Aside from that, combat behaves as usual. Knowing all of this, we can now get into some more general stuff. To make full use of all the characters' kits, they will require a good amount of field time. Most, if not all, Resonators right now do indeed require quite some time on field, and until they do release a unit who does not, we will likely not see anyone swapping in a unit, casting the ultimate and swapping out again. Also, this is inherently due to the Concerto mechanic and how it currently works. Some characters are also simply better played solo than with a team. Jin is such an example. And that would probably literally be everything you need to know about combat. Which also means we can now start finally with team building. So, each team consists up to 3 Resonators. But again, sometimes specific units might just be better played solo, so don't be surprised when you see many dungeon solo clears. Oh, wait. These teams will consist of 1 or 2 damage dealers, and 1 or 2 supports. For this section I wanna briefly mention, please play who you like first and foremost. Going by the meta or specific good teams is always secondary. In any case, if you play 1 or 2 damage dealers, that will depend highly on units which synergize well with each other. As I mentioned before, most units will take significant time on the field to make full use of the kits. Some, actually many of the characters, have an outro skill which buffs 1 or more units on the field. I actually think that Sidney Marr has had a great take on this, so here, go check him out and sub to him if for whatever reason you have not done so yet. But I will also be free and steal his namings and his take right here. So, for Resonators who have buffing capabilities, we can separate them into 2 groups, Direct Buffers and Indirect Buffers. Direct Buffers are units which will only buff the next incoming unit on the field, and Indirect Buffers are those who can buff the entire team. This is also where the Echo set Rejuvenating Glow comes in, as its 5-piece bonus increases the entire team's attack by 15% for 30 seconds. These indirect buffers or team buffers will initially be more or less limited to supports, which as of right now is actually only Verina. Even Baiji only buffs one single character. But again, the healing set also allows Baiji to take that role, so that is great. Direct buffers are, at least for now, most secondary DPS units. This would include all these units on screen right now, and if you refer to those as sub-DPS or not, I will leave that to you. But some of them, like Yinlin, take significantly more field time than a sub-DPS would like, at least in the traditional sense. Also, they often deal damage equal to your main DPS, so there's that as well. Now that we know the basics, let's have a look on how we can build a team. First, we do want to select the Resonator we love the most and certainly want to play with. Or just the one you have, or you are a meta slave, so we will just take Yinlin. What a coincidence, I do like Yinlin as well, so let's take her as an example. If you have not been living under a rock for the last month, you certainly have heard that Calcharo works very well with Yinlin. This is because Yinlin does have off-field damage capabilities and also provides a direct buff to Calcharo. A great support for that team would be Verina, for example, but that is mostly because she is really good and we currently have a significant lack of good supports. Hence, Baiji is also a good choice as of right now. Yang and Mortefi exist as well, but Mortefi is a good support for heavy attacks, and Yinlin does not a lot of heavy attacks, and Yang is mostly a grouper. But with Yinlin in the team, we do not really lack AoE damage. So given our team of Yinlin, Calcharo and Verina, we would start the fight with Verina as she provides the longest lasting buffs with 30 seconds. Next up is Yinlin, and from Yinlin we can go into Calcharo, then back to Yinlin and back again to Calcharo. I will show you the swap rotation of Yinlin and Calcharo on screen, but please keep in mind that this game is very reactive. Bosses are very aggressive, and you will need to dodge and cast dodge counters instead sometimes. It will not be possible in most situations to just follow a perfect rotation. And that's basically it. I know this has been a lot, so let's do a small recap. I also may add one or another useful tip here as well. First, make sure your supports and resonators, which are dependent on the ultimate, have enough energy regeneration to be able to sustain without much field time, and gaining enough energy over the course of the field time from your two other resonators. How much energy regen that exactly is will depend vitally on all three resonators used as well as their weapon. Use the Rejuvenating Glow set on your indirect buffers and either the Moonlit Cloud set or an attribute damage set on your direct buffers, depending on how much damage they actually contribute to the team. If they mostly provide buffs to your main DPS, go for Moonlit Clouds. If they can compete with your main DPS, prefer a damage focused set. Regarding rotations, they are a complicated matter, so I will simplify it. Again, that does not mean it will apply to all teams. But still, you usually want to start with your indirect team buffer, as their buffs usually last for around 20 to 30 seconds, then switch into your direct buffer, whose buff will last for around 14 seconds, and finish off the rotation with your primary DPS. Since all buffs will always scale with the stats your DPS already has, prioritize building your DPS first and foremost. Equipment on buffers are way less important, except if they have a certain energy regen requirement. The aforementioned Verina here would be a good example, however I will cover that in my Verina guide soon. You can switch your equipment in between stages and the Tower of Adversity. As an example, if you have the String Master Rectifier fully built for Yinlin and that's your only rectifier, and use her in the first floor, you can equip this weapon to another character, for example Encore for the second floor. This will help you save on a few resources when building multiple teams. That being said, I really hope this video has been helpful, and if it was, please leave a like, comment and subscribe. These kinds of videos take a long time to create, especially also the spreadsheets and all of the calculations I have to do. Thank you for your time and have a great day. Peace.